everybody, it's Lynsey G. It is March 3rd, 2019. It's my first time doing a live stream in, I guess, about a month. I wasn't able to do one 2 weeks ago like I had planned because I was in a place where the Wi-Fi did not really allow for that, and it was I was traveling and it was super busy, so I haven't done this for a little while. I am hopeful that I haven't totally forgotten how to be somewhat entertaining. I am here because I'm going to read the next chapter from my book, Watching Porn, a memoir/informative text about my time as a journalist for the adult entertainment industry, which also seeks to educate readers and or live stream viewers about the porn industry. It's an industry that I have been sort of hovering around for many years, and it's an industry that doesn't really get a whole lot of coverage. People don't really understand a whole lot about how it works because it's kept very much in the shadows. Please excuse me, I'm trying to adjust my shirt. So I wrote a book about my experiences to help people out there in the world understand more about the industry, and, you know, to tell my story. That's fun too, but it's primarily geared toward educating people. It's just cleverly disguised as a memoir, so that memoir readers are more likely to take it to the beach where people can see it. So yeah, check this out. It's Watching Porn. Before I get started reading, I'm just gonna try to get my bearings here. I was traveling for about 2 weeks. I came back to Missoula, Montana, where I live, on Tuesday, the 26th of February. We landed right after a blizzard had concluded, and we had a few days of like decent weather, and now it's really, really, really cold. We're having like a frigid weather snap. So I think right now it's probably like 3 degrees out or something. It's beautiful. It's like one of those really crisp, cold winter days, and there's snow everywhere, so it's very pretty. But I am bundled up with my turtleneck and everything because it's extremely, extremely cold out. And, oh, a crow just landed on the roof of a garage that I can see, and it looks really pretty. It's like the white snow all over the roof, and then the black crow against the blue sky. Very pretty. I would let you guys see, but then I'd have to fumble around and show you my ugly, disorganized office. So, as you can see back here, there's a huge stack of boxes. That is growing. So if you thought that it looked bigger, you were right. It is a pile of boxes of comic books that I have published through my indie publishing company, Oneshi Press. And while I was gone, we got multiple new boxes of new stuff and some reprints of old stuff in. So right now, there's a ton of boxes behind me. We are looking for a storage option that works, but I haven't found one yet, so please just bear with me and pretend that my office is pretty and pristine and that I don't look like a total hoarder right now. Thanks. Atif X says, "Hi, today is my birthday, so kindly wish me and don't forget to mention my name, please." Well, that is a very specific request, but I don't see any problem with it, so happy birthday, Atif. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know you, so if I did pronounce it miscorrectly, I'm very sorry. But I hope you have a great birthday. Birthdays are fantastic. Mine actually just passed. The reason that I went traveling was partly for business reasons, but also partly as like a happy birthday present to me. And it was lovely, so I'm glad that I did that. Now I'm back to the grind, back to all of my cardboard boxes, back to publishing and editing, which is what I do with most of my time. But for many years, I wrote journalism about the porn industry, so that's what we're here to talk about. Okay, so the chapter that I'm going to read today is called The New Girl, and it's about my experience as a journalist who became like a Hollywood it girl for a little while. And the interesting, well, there were many interesting parts of that experience, but probably the most interesting part of that experience as far as this book is concerned is how much it taught me about the porn industry. Although I was I was involved with the mainstream Hollywood industry, it was very much tied in with my experience in and around the adult entertainment industry. So it was a really wild experience to be caught up in sort of both of those worlds, and to realize like how similar and yet how very, very different the adult entertainment industry and the mainstream entertainment industry really can be. So that's what I'm going to read about today. I usually like to take a little while to start reading, since sometimes people tend to trickle in, you know, over time, and I want everybody to get as much of the chapter reading as they can. Oh, you're welcome, Atif. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I hope that your birthday's fantastic. However, I feel like I'm kind of off of my game today, so I don't really know what to talk about if I'm not reading. Oh, hello, Rosetta. Thank you for being here. Chris, hi. Wow, I have friends here. Thank you, everybody, for dropping in to listen to me read my book. So the thing is, this book was published originally in 2017 in hardcover format, and that went great. I had an awesome launch party at the Strand bookstore in New York City with a panel discussion with some luminaries in the adult entertainment industry. It was super fantastic. And then a year later, it came out in paperback after having won a cool award. That's why it's got this little seal on it, an independent book publisher's award. But the thing is that I know that not everybody has time to read. I read a lot, but that's because I'm an editor and I actually do it for work. So I don't really read a whole lot for pleasure. I don't really have the time to do it anyway. I'm also a publisher, so I read a lot of submissions and things through, you know, publishing them. But I know that most people don't have a whole lot of time on their plates for reading books. And I also know that reading can be an expensive hobby, especially if you want to get a physical copy of a book. You know, that adds up fast. So I am reading this book chapter by chapter during live streams, so that if people are interested but don't have the time or the ability to buy the book, they can still, you know, cash in on all my years of knowledge. I am such an expert. Rosetta says, I'm going to lurk, but I hope you have a great stream. Thank you so much. Thanks for the view, Rosetta. I know that that counts for a lot in the live streaming world, so I really appreciate you lurking. Thank you so much. However, if anyone out there is interested by what they hear in this live stream and would like to get a copy of this little book, they are available for sale directly from me through my website. They're also available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, through Powell's, through the Strand, like pretty much any place, any like major book retailer has these little puppies. And it would be great for me because if you buy from me, obviously that's great for me. But if you buy through somebody else, then I still make some royalties on that. And that's fantastic because who can't use a little bit of extra money? I definitely can. So, what else? I am just kind of blanking. I'm like a little brain dead after my vacation, I think. We landed and immediately discovered that our car wasn't working, so we had to get that taken care of. One of our fish died when we came home. We had to, you know, unpack, clean, still doing laundry, like, and I've been working since the moment we landed, so it's just been kind of wild. I feel like my head is not totally in the game. Hello, JL. Howdy. Oh yeah, that water is the good stuff. Alright, well, I'm not coming up with anything to talk about, so I think I'm just going to dive into this chapter. Usually I do a lot of prep work before I do a live stream, where I'll like go through the chapter and cut out certain parts, you know, for length purposes, but I didn't get a chance to do that this time. I think this is a sort of longish chapter, so I'm just going to dive in so that we're not all here all day waiting. I'll take some breaks during the reading for some water, so if you have any questions, hopefully I will catch those when I'm on my little reading breaks. So here we go. Chapter 12, The New Girl. Back in New York in early 2010, my life had taken on a surreal quality. For the book I was trying to ghostwrite, I was still attending swinger parties, sometimes alone and sometimes with Matthew or friends from the swinging community. I didn't participate in the action beyond a few makeout sessions, but I watched a lot of live sex. It was an odd parallel to my porn reviewing career, which was continuing apace at the print magazine for which I had watched a lot of hardcore gonzo porn, and at Whack, for which I was tending more toward feature films and parodies. Whack, for those who haven't been watching the previous streams, is the online adult trade magazine that I started with some friends of mine. We did reviews and interviews and op-eds and all kinds of things about the porn industry. And I was also working for a print magazine that I did reviews for, and another magazine that I did set copy for, which is not reviewing porn, but is very much porn adjacent. So, it confused and disturbed me that, although I was frequently surrounded by sex and by prospective sex partners, my interest wasn't piqued by very much. It had, however, been quite piqued by a good friend who we'll call Jen. She and her fiancé, who we'll call Adam, had moved in downstairs from Matthew and me in Harlem, and now the four of us got together once a week or so for video games, movies, food, weed, and booze. Jen and I had been growing closer, and when she and Adam showed interest in the swinger parties I was attending, Matthew and I decided to invite them to one. Things got intense at the party, and I walked away from the encounter with the rather surprising understanding that I had a massive crush on Jen. As my understanding of non-monogamous relationships and my own sexuality deepened, I began to consider that my long-term relationship with Matthew might not be the only one I could maintain. So, after some very long conversations with Matthew, Jen, and Adam, as well as some more fooling around, Jen and I started formally dating. It was an interesting dynamic between the four of us. Matthew and Adam were in no way interested in each other, and Matthew wasn't interested in Jen either. But he wasn't opposed, he said, to my relationship with her. Soon, Jen and I were going on dates and spending nights together. And so, I became polyamorous. I felt really good about it. I also felt good about really exploring my sexuality. Now that I was getting a look at the wide world of sex on film and at sex parties, I realized that gender wasn't really an issue for me at all. If Jen had been a man, or a trans woman, or any gender, I would have been magnetized just the same. When I interviewed Sophia St, a gorgeous buxom queer porn star, she told me, "For me, being queer means that I'm an equal opportunity lover. I enjoy many different sexualities and many different genders. Queer can also, for me, mean that you've taken your sexual realm and identity outside of the societal, heteronormative views of what sex should be." These ideas were directly in line with my evolving understanding of myself, and when I began dating Jen seriously, it occurred to me that I wasn't really bisexual, as they say, attracted to two specific genders, as I had considered myself for years. Rather, I considered myself queer, attracted to whatever gender a person who interests me happens to be. Okay, so I wrote that a few years ago, and since then I've done a lot more reading on bisexuality, and there's a lot of, ongoing talk about whether bisexuality actually means that you're attracted to two specific genders, or whether it can be more of, anyone on any gender spectrum. And I believe that the consensus opinion right now is that bisexual can mean, that you're attracted to any gender. It's not necessarily that binary. I, however, still prefer the term queer. It just feels less specific. It feels like I don't have to put myself into, as much of a little box, to fit. And I like the word. So, that's me. On the porn reporting front, I was trying to keep up with a seemingly endless roster of new girls in adult entertainment. Publicists had gotten wind of Whack and wanted their clients interviewed, but no matter how many Q&As we conducted, there was always a brand new actor to talk to. That night at the Circus casino in Vegas kept popping up in my head. In just a few short years, I had seen several merry-go-rounds of adult talent whiz by, each new wave of up-and-comers ready to reinvent the carousel. I doubt that any industry, except maybe food service, has a quicker turnover rate than porn. And I'd be willing to bet that porn has the most spectacularly meteoric career trajectory, with new talent rising through the ranks in the blink of an eye, spending a few months at the glamorous top, and then opting out, often in crash-and-burn fashion. When I started writing about the industry in 2007, the estimate for the average female porn performer's career was an 18-month blitz. But by the time I attended the XBiz Industry Conference in Los Angeles in early 2016, Panelists were saying that most new female talent only lasted 3 or 4 months. This incredible career brevity is due to a number of variables. Many young people use the sex industry as a way to make quick cash, moving on when the debt is satisfied, school is finished, or purchase is made. Others try to sow their wild oats. They get some kicks, but never plan on staying. Plenty have their sights set on fame and fortune, but then realize that porn is more difficult than they had imagined and abandon the idea. And of course, some quitters? Oh my god, I need to stop reading ahead. Okay. And of course, some actors are quickly disillusioned by bad experiences with unscrupulous producers, agents, or co-stars. Performer Mickey Maud told me once, "It's really a misconception that everyone in this industry is exploited. But it is true that sometimes people can get taken advantage of, particularly when they're being pressured by someone who may have a financial interest in their performance or their career path." And by that, he meant agents and managers and producers and so forth. For many who experience manipulation or coercion of this kind, careers in porn may not last that long. And it's important to realize that, pop culture's fascination with successful porn stars' glamorous lives aside, it's not easy to achieve success in smut. Performer Mandy Morbid told me once, "It's hard to support yourself in porn unless you're willing to take almost every job that comes along. And not every job is worth a performer's time." Careers are difficult to sustain after the initial burst of work, during which many female performers find money practically falling into their laps. New girls in porn are human commodities, the likes of which simply do not exist in other industries, except maybe the modeling industry. It's similar. Where did that go? I lost my place. No. Oh god. Okay, yes, new girls in porn are human commodities, the likes of which simply do not exist in other industries. In an interview for Whack, performer Sheena Ryder told me, "They're just letting girls get off the bus and putting them through the industry on, conveyor belts. And those conveyor belts serve as the industry's main artery to relevance. Both novelty and youth are hugely popular in terms of human arousal worldwide, and new girls usually possess both of these attributes. As a result, they are coveted by pornographers and consumers alike. There's a standardized trajectory for a new porn model to follow with regards to the sex acts she performs on camera, with pay rates escalating along with the level of hardcore acts she's willing to engage in. This trajectory isn't one size fits all, and it's falling out of fashion as the industry shrinks and new performers enter the biz already savvy about choosing their own career paths. But the stepladder ascent of yesteryear was quite structured, as T-Real explained to me in a 2016 interview. 10 years ago, he said, there were dozens of solo companies and anal companies and interracial companies. The list goes on and on. At that time, the attitude of agents from a business perspective was, I can bring a girl in January and have her do solo or girl-girl work for an entire year. An important note here. Although many of these girl-girl scenes are marketed as lesbian scenes, they are called girl-girl within the industry because female performers are expected to be gay for pay. A higher percentage of porn performers self-report as bisexual than the rest of the population, so rarely do girl-girl scenes involve partners who are truly repulsed by vulvas, but these scenes are nevertheless not considered gay. Also worth noting, scenes between clearly not gay women in mainstream porn aren't that hard to find, and they're just as disappointing as you would expect. Continuing on. T-Real continued in his hypothetical porn star progression. Wait, hypothetical? Hang on. T-Real continued in his hypothetical porn star progression. When she's shot out with those girl-girl companies, the next year she can do boy-girl. And I can probably up the price and get more money out of a production company for her first boy-girl scene. So she's shooting boy-girl for the next year. And then maybe I can stretch it out for another year before her first anal in year 3. And then in year 4, maybe I can stretch it out for interracial. It was a business decision, he said, to move through the industry this way. The master list of on-camera firsts and the order in which they happened is becoming outmoded. Now there are only a fraction of the number of companies shooting any of the above types of content, so T-Real told me that a model entering the industry in January would be able to work with every girl-girl, boy-girl, anal, and interracial company by March, 3 months after she started. There's not much of a point putting off boy-girl scenes for all of the 2 weeks it would take to work with every girl-girl company. Moreover, the new millennium has brought with it a bit more candor around sex in America. linked arm in arm, of course, with easy access to its visual depictions vis-a-vis the internet. Then existed when a first-time anal scene was a game-changer for a new performer's career. Fewer hang-ups around sexual taboos have liberated many porn actors from compunction about jumping into double penetration scenes right out of the gate if they want to try them. No matter the placement of sexual landmarks in a performer's career, whether she climbs the new girl ladder rung by rung or plunges right into the deep end of the pool, the pay remains scalable. She will be paid more for a hardcore gangbang than a girl-girl spanking scene, no matter how many times she's done either in her private life. But it's important to point out that pay rates are by no means standard across the industry. Pay is governed by supply and demand, the depth of a producer's pockets, the star power of the performer in question, and the difficulty of the shoot. Naturally, more established companies with bigger budgets can afford to pay more, but also naturally, that doesn't mean that they will pay more. But smaller companies with more to prove might be willing to offer more to get the model they want doing the scene they're looking to capture. But pay does average out across the industry, as agents and producers need to work together to meet their bottom lines. Sadly, rates have fallen precipitously as online piracy has devoured the fat around the middle of the industry. Mark Spiegler told The Hollywood Reporter that the average porn star had made around $100,000 a year in 2002, but that by 2012 he estimated the average had been cut in half. Of course, his clients, Mark Spiegler's clients, generally command higher rates and pull in more than the average performer. Spiegler girls can earn $2,000 or more for their scenes, while rates for typical boy-girl scenes pay most female models between $700 and $1,500. And I wrote that in probably the end of 2016, so those rates have probably changed. I would not be at all surprised to find that they've gone down. So I would guess that the average boy-girl scene pays a female model like between $400 and like $1,000 now. Again, it depends on who is filming and who is performing. There's a whole lot of variables there, but yeah, that's my estimate now. Another detail worth noting when it comes to performer pay is that it's very different from male talent. In a country where women in other industries make 79 cents or less, depending on race, age, and ability level, per male dollar for the same work, this discrepancy is worth pointing out with an extra pointy finger. Cisgender guys in straight porn earn only about $500 per scene on average, with newbies getting blowjobs making as little as $50 and bigger names pulling in up to $5,000 for a scene. But those at the top tier may find themselves doing a limited amount of work, since most studios either can't or won't pay their rates. But let's get back to the new girl, and what happens once she ceases to be a new girl. Once all of the interested companies have filmed what they wanted, and she's checked off all of the boxes on her to-do list of sex acts, she will find that work slows down. She's got fewer firsts to offer producers, she's worked with most of the people she wanted to, she's figured out whom and what she enjoys on camera, but now there's another brand spanking new crop of fresh faces arriving in the valley, ready to climb the ladder that she just traversed. Kelly Shibari summed it up neatly for me in an interview. In the beginning, when you get in, you're the new girl, and you're friendly with everybody, and you go to all the events, and you go to all the nightclubs, and you go to all the signings. That whole first year, everything's amazing. It's perfect. Then the second year happens, when you don't get as much work. By the third year, a lot of girls have either decided if they're going to stick it out or if they're just done. When a new face is no longer enough to ensure constant work, it's time to make a decision. Take a stab at a career by building one's brand and really going for it, or bow out, take whatever money is in the bank, and get a different job. Many pick one of these options, but there's also a contingent of models working in porn today who have chosen a mix of the two. They found that porn can pay some of the bills, but often not all of them. Some performers have other jobs to supplement their income, or see porn itself as the supplement. Quick break. Hello, anybody new who has popped in, and also hello to people who have been here all along. My tried and true troopers. Interesting fact. I was editing a book yesterday, and somebody talked about someone who's going through a chronic illness as a trooper, you know, someone who puts up with a lot of pain and, you know, continues to smile, right? I discovered that trooper, in that sense, is not spelled like an army troop, like T-R-O-O-P. It's T-R-O-U-P, as in a member of, like, a troupe of actors. I'm not sure why. I didn't look into the etymology. I just decided to look it up to check to make sure that that was the correct spelling. You don't see it written down that often. It's more something that people tend to use, in conversations. Yeah, it's trooper with a U. Go figure. Who knew? Man, I thought that everybody was going to be totally blown away by that fact. I guess nobody cares as much about the spelling of little used terminology as I do. It's a good thing I'm a copy editor, guys. Nobody else cares about this crap. All right, moving on. 5 days after my 27th birthday, on which I had been able to enjoy some of the sexual excess that my polyamorous swinger party attending, porn reviewing lifestyle might suggest, I received an email from someone named Lynsey, incidentally, who worked in development for a television production company in Los Angeles. Chris says that Lori says she was blown away by that fact. Thank you, Lori. I knew somebody out there cared. Yeah, look it up. I am totally not making this up. All right. I was contacted by someone named Lynsey who worked in development for a television production company in Los Angeles. She had become a fan of my column at McSweeney's, she said. Oh, excuse me. And was interested in setting up a meeting. 5 days later, I left a night class early, growing tired of being a receptionist. I was pursuing a certificate in publishing from the City College of New York. So I left my night class and hid out in an adjunct professor's office while I took the scariest, most exciting phone call of my life. I told myself to be calm, take the call, and try not to pee my pants. Unfortunately, I really had to pee when the phone rang. I didn't know where the bathroom in this part of the building was, and I didn't want to miss the call or be forced to answer the phone in midstream, so I had to hold it. Have you ever had to urinate so badly that your brain can no longer process information? Combine that sensation with an elevated breathing rate, quickened pulse, dilated pupils, and overexcited shivers, and then pair all of that physical inundation with the scattered brain of someone who's been anticipating a possibly life-changing phone call for days. All things considered, it makes sense that I barely remember the phone call. It was me on one end, with the president of television for the company, the woman who had initially contacted me, and someone else whose title now completely escapes me. All conferenced in. All three of them were friendly, but to the point. They were extremely interested in turning my column, The Conflicted Existence of the Female Porn Writer, into a television pilot based on my life. They wanted to fly me to LA to meet their team, and, seeing as I didn't have proper representation for an offer as serious as this, they wanted to introduce me to agents while I was visiting, so that they could get to work on a contract immediately. I said yes to everything. Then I got off the phone and found a bathroom. Yeah, that was a wild evening. I was like, this is probably the most important phone call I'm ever going to take in my life, and I have to pee so bad I can't concentrate on anything. It was really rough. So if anyone out there, I'm sure most of you are unfamiliar with the City College of New York. It's a campus in way up in Harlem, and there's all these beautiful old buildings on campus that have been there for like hundreds of years, but then there's this one gigantic building. It's like a spaceship. It's this huge building, and I wasn't very familiar with it, and I was in that building in a friend's office. He was an adjunct professor, and he'd let me use his office to take the phone call, so I could duck out of my class and not have to get the whole way home before it was scheduled. And this building was so massive that the nearest bathroom could have been really far away. And so I was like, well, I had 5 minutes between when I left class and when I had the phone call, and I didn't pass a bathroom on the way, so I just had to hold it. It was really bad. A few weeks later, I arrived in LA. I had been to Northern California before, but never Los Angeles. I'd never seen the rows of tall, spindly Pacific palm trees lining the boulevards, or experienced the balmy March weather, or been able to see the Hollywood sign from a luxurious and paid-for hotel room. I felt like I was in the kind of dream that's so fantastic it's dogged by the certainty that at any moment one might wake up bereft. For 3 days, I was the center of a whirlwind of cab rides, coffee, and meetings with television developers and producers, literary and television agents, lawyers, and other writers. I was complimented more times in the span of 72 hours than I had been in the previous 5 years, and I got the not unpleasant impression that rainbows were being beamed up my ass. The agents I met were fast-talking and driven. They wanted me to be the next Carrie Bradshaw, writing whimsical columns in much more expensive apartments, wearing much more expensive shoes than I currently did. I got the taste of magenta glitter in my mouth. As really nothing more than a literary dork with a more interesting part-time job than most, I was bewildered. I saw my TV doppelganger as a blundering, sarcastic type who wore old, funky sweaters, watched sci-fi, and shopped at the discount store on her block. But these people were envisioning a club girl with stilettos who shopped at stores whose names I didn't know how to pronounce. I wasn't opposed necessarily to a marriage of the two, particularly if it meant that I got a TV doppelganger, but neither did I want to be treated like something I was not. The thing about LA, I discovered, was that it moves just as fast as New York, but the people are more concerned with fluffing each other's egos than talking business. After only a few short days, I had a head the size of a Volkswagen. I had an entertainment lawyer. I had the private numbers of some of the hottest agents in town. Everyone had wanted a piece of the shiny new penny. I think one of the agents actually called me that during our meeting. If I could keep up this momentum, I told myself, I could be rich. Or at least richer than my receptionist and writer life had thus far made me. And if a TV show were made based on my life, I could be famous. It was so easy. In my New Yorker's heart of hearts, though, I knew that it was too easy. I could hope for all of these dreams to come true based on the strength of the columns I had written for McSweeney's, but I had better not count on any of it. None of the people I talked to in LA admitted to having actually read my reviews or seen any of my interviews. I had no experience handling people who made million-dollar deals. I worked for those people, as a receptionist. I knew how to be subservient to their whims, but I had no idea how to have my own whims, much less enforce them. The only people I knew who had any kind of experience with this particular breed of madness were porn stars. I imagined myself navigating LA via the porn industry instead of Hollywood as a new girl. I had been told by agents and producers alike that I was attractive. Now I imagined being told that by people who were paying me for it. Even now, squarely in my mid-30s and having spent a solid decade writing about feminist thought, action, and community, it's impossible for me to overstate the impact of being told that I'm pretty. For whatever reason, societal or biological or both or something else, there are very few women I know who will ever get tired of physical compliments. I'm in no way exempt from this phenomenon. A few Hollywood types commenting on my attractiveness was enough to have me envisioning myself living a bi-coastal lifestyle with large, sunny apartments in New York and Los Angeles. I couldn't fathom how I'd be feeling if those people were instead complimenting me on the way my ass looked in boy shorts or how enticing they found my smile. In the porn industry, I realized I'd have followed the same trajectory as any other model until that new penny sheen wore off. As far as I could see from my first interactions with Hollywood, show business was show business. Compliments, coffee, and the whiff of easy money, no matter what LA industry you were working in. The agents also told me that they were excited by my connections in the porn industry. They wanted to know if actual pornographers would be interested in doing television appearances. Would porn stars talk to me for the book I was clearly going to write? A memoir, perhaps, with a glittery magenta cover? Not wanting to show all my cards, I told the agents that I could likely pull some strings and get porn stars on my TV show and in my book. I tried to make it sound as if this would be an insider's job that only I could pull off. They looked pleased and jotted notes. But inside, I was appalled. Some part of me had been holding out hope that the divide I had perceived between the us of the mainstream world and the them of the porn community wasn't as wide or as deep as I feared. Surely, I had let myself think, in Los Angeles, where the Hollywood elite live and work and shop and eat right next to porn stars, there's more overlap than I'd seen. Less division, more acceptance. But at the talent agencies and the production company, the chasm between the industries yawned wider than it did from my far-flung perch in New York, where the sheer density of human beings forces divides to narrow. The porn industry exists in literally the same city as Hollywood. There is porn being filmed all over Los Angeles all the time, especially in 2010. There was no actual geographical divide between the daily lives of most Angelenos and their porn-making brethren. The divide existed only in the human mind, but the Hollywood folks believed that it was real. What made this divide even more curious was the fact that in 2010, the perpetual itch of both industries to cross the gap was at a particularly feverish pitch. The height of the celebrity sex tape phenomenon coincided coincided almost perfectly with the peak of the porn industry's analogous crossover madness. And the intermingling of mainstream and adult entertainment is sometimes even more literal than leaked sex tapes. Reality TV shows are no stranger to porn stars, and neither are many major networks' online series. Late-night cable TV has long shared cast lists with adult films. I had heard lots of whispers about A-listers crossing the divide to spend their Hollywood cash with porn stars at clubs and private parties. In fact, in an interview with Whack magazine, rock star Dave Navarro told me in no uncertain terms that he had been intimate with quite a few porn stars. And yet, in the same city in which he lives, I had watched agents' eyes light up at the prospect of getting a real live porn star on their contact list. It was really bizarre. At the same time, maybe unbeknownst to the agents and producers I met with, mainstream entertainment and other industries were already opening up significantly to crossover talent coming from the porn industry. Nikki Benz, who I interviewed for Whack in 2011, was that year's Penthouse Pet of the Year, the first porn star to earn the distinction. And when I spoke to her, she had just signed a contract for her 3rd year on the show Cubed on the Fox Sports Network. She told me that she didn't see her crossover work as an outlier. I feel that porn and the whole adult industry is a part of pop culture right now, she said. It's very popular. It's not taboo anymore. When I met with agents in LA in March of 2010, porn star Sasha Grey had just starred in acclaimed director Steven Soderbergh's film The Girlfriend Experience. Although critics weren't sure what to make of her performance, the porn industry was beside itself with excitement at seeing one of its own making such a splash in the mainstream. Grey was one of the youngest, brightest, and most bankable actors in the adult film industry, having foregone the standard new girl ascent up the ladder of sex acts by performing in a gangbang in her first ever sex scene at the age of 18. She then astonished fans with her intelligence in interviews, continued to turn in scenes with blazing sexual intensity, and won the coveted AVN Performer of the Year award in 2008 as the youngest woman ever to receive the accolade. A few months after my trip to LA, still high on her Girlfriend Experience success, she started an ongoing role in the successful TV series Entourage, and summarily retired from porn about a year later. Since then, she has continued to work in mainstream entertainment as a successful, if no longer as wildly hyped, actor, voiceover actor, artist, musician, and author. Grey's crossover success was notable for many reasons, including the relatively high profile she earned on the other side of the porn/mainstream divide. Many who attempt to make the same leap find themselves strapped to far less notable vehicles, like B-horror movies, badly edited memoirs, and music videos. Jenna Jameson, perhaps the most famous crossover star of all, arguably never crossed much of a divide, at least as far as her industry affiliation was concerned. She became world famous entirely on the merits of her porn career. There's nothing wrong with that, especially because she paved a path for others to follow. As adult director Ivan said in an interview, some porn people become novelties that are thrown into the mainstream world just for being a porn star. But Sasha Grey broke that mold by being regarded by many as not a porn star who could act, but as an actor who had done porn. While she may not have landed blanket approval from the big guns in Hollywood, she was perhaps the first porn star to be taken moderately seriously by the other film industry in Los Angeles. But she was not the last. James Deen actually started in porn earlier than Sasha Grey, but as a cisgender man working in the straight industry, his star was not as quick to rise. There is no new guy phenomenon analogous to the new girl trajectory in straight porn. Men are the workhorses, expected to be experienced from the get-go, with little added stigma attached to the sex acts they film, unless they're perceived as too gay, but we'll talk about that later. Deen got started in 2004 and worked steadily in the industry for years before he gained widespread attention. He had, in fact, appeared in an issue of the first magazine I wrote for way back in 2008. There was no fanfare over the set of double penetration photographs he posed for, and though I'm sure he crossed my radar in some of the films I reviewed, he didn't really interest me until he won his first Male Performer of the Year award in 2009. Around that time, a peculiar thing had begun to happen. Women watching porn started to take note of his average physique, his guy-next-door charm, and his chemistry with his co-stars. They started to talk about him, to tell their friends, to create fan pages. I noted the stir he was creating and sought him out for an interview in mid-2010, looking to cash in on his budding reputation as the thinking woman's male porn star. We exchanged emails, and the responses he gave were friendly, sort of funny, but not clever or interesting. When I asked him how he'd gotten so successful, he just said, "I'm the luckiest boy alive." Despite his retiring nature, women all over the world started to seek out his work. And significantly, they started paying for it. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Porn producers will do what makes them money. When I started to realize that not only was the cute, personable Deen a reliable performer, but also a guarantee of financial success, a singular phenomenon began to occur. He got really famous. Not just male porn star Ron Jeremy famous, I mean legit famous. I mean co-starring with Lynsey freaking Lohan in The Canyons, written by Bret Easton Ellis, mainstream Hollywood famous. And it was all because women liked him. The importance of this distinction cannot be overstated. Not only was Deen breaking down barriers between pornography and mainstream entertainment, he was doing it in the good graces of women who enjoyed depictions of enthusiastic consent in their porn. There was no icky ambiguity, even in the kink and hardcore scenes he was known for, about whether his co-stars were enjoying what they were doing. He told me in our interview, "When it comes to sex, I think it is all about communication and connection." This line of thinking made feminist porn consumers feel safe watching him perform, and more importantly, paying for the privilege. I also watched his rise to fame with curiosity because as early as 2011 I had begun to hear vague and unpleasant rumors about him. Nobody said exactly why, but there were some in the industry who gave him a wide berth. Those who knew him well clammed up when his name was mentioned. There were a few terse utterances of, "I don't want to talk about James Deen," and "that guy gives me the creeps." And even once, "he has dead eyes." A friend of mine who had become close with numerous performers, including Deen's then-girlfriend and industry legend Joanna Angel, mentioned several times how horrendous their breakup in 2011 was, but didn't elaborate. On the merits of these foggy rumors, I avoided Deen. While I sensed a dark story beneath the Golden Boy reputation, I wanted just as much as anyone else to believe that he was as good as he seemed, which, it turns out, he was not. On November 28, 2015, porn star, writer, and performance artist Stoya wrote 2 tweets that broke the internet. "James Deen held me down and fucked me while I said no, stop, used my safe word. I just can't nod and smile when people bring him up anymore." Porn's biggest power couple in 2013 and 2014, Stoya and Deen had broken up quietly and gone their separate ways, occasionally working together for their own fledgling production companies after their break. So, more than a year after their split, the social media bomb went off unexpectedly and set off an avalanche. Joanna Angel sided with Stoya almost immediately, then went on to tell the story of her 6-year relationship with him as one of perpetual abuse, both physical and emotional, and the floodgates burst. Those vague rumors I'd been catching whiffs of for years came spilling out in horrific detail as 12 other women in and around the adult industry came forward with their own harrowing accounts of sexual misconduct, abuse, and assault at the hands of James Deen. The stories ranged from offset assault to on-camera brutality to flat-out rape. His dark reputation, it seemed, was a not very well-kept secret in the industry. But he was a powerful man with a sterling image in the outside world. He was profitable, reliable, and wildly popular. And so the women he assaulted had kept mostly quiet, sometimes appealing to directors and studio heads for recourse, sometimes simply trying to forget about it. But in the aftermath of these horrendous accusations and blossoming sickness in the pits of stomachs both in the adult industry and without, something just as amazing as Deen's initial rise to fame happened. Instead of a too familiar Bill Cosby scenario in which the motivations of the women alleging abuse were questioned and discredited, pornographers quickly, though by no means unanimously, sided with Deen's alleged victims. Companies and performers canceled shoots and contracts with him. The press interviewed the women speaking out against him and published their words, rather than twisting them into unreliable-sounding bits of copy. Discussions of consent in pornography ricocheted around the internet, and many in the industry vowed to rethink their policies around consent, on and offset. The fallout continues to rain down on the industry as of me writing this, but no legal actions have yet been taken against Deen. And sadly, though the industry seemed to have abandoned the popular actor initially, the, quote, well-hung boy next door is still working steadily in porn. He's been producing more of his own films and working less with other companies, as fewer are willing to hire him, and fewer women are willing to work with him. But while his name appears to have been tarnished, especially amongst the feminist community, his sexual skills have not. In an industry that prizes the rare man who can handle the rigors of the job, his abilities seem to have spoken louder than his alleged transgressions. So that's the end of that chapter, which kind of went off on a rant about James Deen, but the James Deen story, I think, is really important in, like, a lot of ways, because when it broke in 2015, that was before the, the Me Too, hashtag Me Too movement. And it was the first time that I knew about where a bunch of women came forward and said, hey, this guy's an abuser. He did terrible things to me. And they were taken seriously, like right away. I mean, they're, it's never perfect. Like, there were definitely some people who didn't believe them. There are definitely a lot of people who just continued to work with James because they didn't really care, who sided with him. But for the most part, the adult entertainment industry really solidified itself behind the women who had been hurt. People weren't trying to make excuses all over the place. People weren't trying to say, oh, they're porn stars, we can't take what they say seriously. Like, everyone in and out of the industry, not everyone, but almost everyone in and out of the industry really believed those women. And actions really were taken. There were a lot of, like, big name companies that James Deen worked for a lot who dropped him and refused to work with him again. And at that time, it was, like, relatively standard practice for a lot of companies to shoot before and or after interviews with their talent, where they discuss what they're going to do beforehand and or talk about what happened afterward. And some of them, put this in, like, the behind the scenes or make it part of the scene, but a lot of companies just keep that video on hand so that they can prove that consent was given. And that was a thing that existed, but it wasn't super standardized at that time. And I think that since that happened, it's become much more standard, that, consent is, like, clearly negotiated and discussed on camera. And that isn't to say that that's a foolproof plan. It definitely isn't. If someone's basically, like, waving a check in your face at the end of the most horrible scene that you've ever done, and you want to cry and go home, and they're saying, hey, here's your check, did you have a good time? Say yes for the camera. Whether or not your consent was violated, you're probably going to say yes and grab your check and go home. That makes sense. But still, the point remains that the industry has done a lot more to try to be responsible as a whole about sexual consent than, like, any other industry that I know of. And when Me Too happened a few years later, I really felt like the movements had kind of begun with the porn industry. And that just might be, like, my bias. There's probably a lot of other things going on, but it was really heartening to see that. So I think that the James Deen case is really important on that level. I think it really formed a groundwork that helped Me Too be taken seriously in the other industries that it impacted later on. But it's also really important because the James Deen story just continues to unfold. So when I was in the process of writing this book, I guess it was the very beginning of 2017. No, it must have been 2016. I went in 2016 and not 2017? God, I don't remember. Anyway, but it was 2016 because Stoya's tweets came out at the end of 2015 and caused, a huge stir in the adult entertainment industry and elsewhere. And then Stoya was supposed to host the Avian Awards, maybe the XBiz Awards. And that was a huge thing. Like, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to talk to anybody after it all happened. She just wanted to, like, make her point and fucking disappear. She was exhausted. So when I went to AVN in 2016 to collect interviews for my book, I was amazed when I was walking around the casino floor at the Hard Rock and saw James Deen. Like, the fact that he was even at the convention and, like, willing to show his face was, like, amazing to me. Like, wow, you have a gigantic ego. And even more amazing was watching the way that people responded to him, because, like, he was an anathema at that point. Like, nobody who took women seriously wanted to be seen, like, talking to him, even. Because, like, the allegations that came out, like, some of the stuff is on camera. Like, some of it happened on camera. A lot of it, obviously, was not on camera, but, like, it was really bad stuff. Like, I read all of it. I wrote several articles about it. Like, I followed it, and I had heard enough of those like pseudo rumors beforehand that by the time that these allegations actually came out, I believed all of them. Like, I knew that there was a lot of fucked upness going on there. So like, you know, there I am at AVN, and so there's a bar, there's a bar at the Hard Rock. I don't know if it actually has a name. I can't think of it now. Where everybody kind of hangs out. Like a big bar in the middle of the casino floor. And I remember like watching him and his girlfriend, and I think there was one other person with them, like walk across the casino floor and up into the bar. And like so many people just did like a, like, please don't make eye contact with me. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Just like pretended that he wasn't there. Like the seas kind of like parted around him. And then like he found a group of people that still liked him, and like they hung out for a while, and I just kept like looking at him because I was like, I mean, how do you show up right now? How do you show up and act like everything is fine? I mean, even if you're completely innocent, which is, you know, what he maintains that he was, like everyone here really doesn't like you right now. Why would you? I guess I don't understand. I don't understand how his brain works. But anyway, so as I said in the book, he continued to get work. He was like maybe not working with the same companies, but pretty much still getting work because he was still some of the top talent in the industry, and not everybody cared that he had hurt, you know, a dozen women or more. So that sucked, but it was kind of like, okay, well, you know, we're able to just like keep on moving and stop thinking about James Deen. Until a few weeks ago, when an article came out on Jezebel saying that Evil Angel, who was one of the first and most vocal companies to drop James Deen when all of these allegations came out, has decided that they're going to start working with James Deen again because they think that 3 years is enough time for him to be an anathema. And they've decided that not only are they going to put him in a movie, they're going to base an entire movie like around his consent violations. I don't remember for certain if he's going to be, I think he's going to be working with Lily LeBeau, who's one of the women who alleged that he hurt her. And they're going to call the movie Consent. So, like, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about that. Like, on the one hand, I understand that the porn industry thrives on causing controversy. There are a lot of porn companies that make a lot of money just by, like, putting out ridiculous press releases with stupid claims. Like, there have been several, at least, companies who keep themselves in the public eye by offering $1 million deals to celebrities who they want to make, you know, sex tapes of. You know, people do ridiculous things to get attention in the porn industry, and that's a tried and true thing. It works. I get it. And I think that this is one of those situations where they're trying to be really, really provocative. But John Stagliano, who is the founder of Evil Angel, and who I have a lot of respect for, he was brought up on obscenity charges in a federal court a few years ago and beat the hell out of it, and I've always found him a very smart, very interesting person. He has just decided that he thinks 3 years is long enough for James Deen to be on the outs, and that it's time to talk about this in a real way with a porn film. And I know he's trying to be provocative and smart and, like, intellectual about it, but, like, for fuck's sake, man, there are some things that, like, people shouldn't just get a pass for. And the same thing is happening with a bunch of people that were involved in the Me Too movement. Like Louis C.K. and Aziz Ansari are just, like, you know, getting lots of space on stages right now. Although the Aziz Ansari thing is a little bit, it's complicated. But, you know, the whole thing is that, like, these people are called out for their bad behavior, and then they spend, you know, a year or two or whatever doing, like, giving fake apologies and pretending like they're trying to change their ways, and then they just pop back up and they're like, look, everybody, I'm back. Like, no, fucking change your behavior. Show that you've changed your behavior. Don't just, like, keep doing the same thing that you've done and now be bitter about it and think that you're being, like, intellectually challenging. I don't know. I am very angry about it. I mean, I do think that there's an important point to be made that if people have abused other people, there needs to be some sort of like roadmap in place for like how to proceed from there. Like, what do we do? What does this person do? But I don't think that giving them their own feature film and welcoming them back into the fold of the industry is the way to do it. I mean, for fuck's sake, the guy hurt like at least a dozen, probably many more people very badly, traumatized them. People left the industry because of what he did, and now they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, he had his reputation ruined for like a minute there, so let's just bring him back on. Poor guy. Okay, right. I'm gonna stop ranting about this. I'm gonna talk about something else. I'm gonna take a sip of water because nobody needs to hear me rant. I am seriously upset about it though. I think James Deen is a fucking creep. And that is on the record for the whole world to see. I think he's a creep. And I don't think that he deserves to get a feature film with Evil Angel. So, I wish that wasn't happening. Okay, anyway. Other stuff. What else was this chapter about? I know there are things in there. Oh, we talked about performer pay. We talked about the new girl cycle of, you know, career trajectory in porn. An interesting side note is that, you know, this book focuses very, very much on the straight porn industry and to a smaller degree the queer porn industry, which is not nearly as industrialized. But I don't talk quite as much about the gay porn industry, primarily just because that is not the industry that I have covered. I don't know nearly as much about it. So I focus on the straight industry. But one of the things that I mentioned is that, you know, in the straight industry, men make less money. And they don't have the same, like, career trajectory, you know, whereas, like, the new girl that comes into porn is expected to be this, like, innocent and, like, sweet, bubbly thing, and, like, all of these things that she's doing on camera are new, and it's, like, taboo because it's all new for her, woo! That doesn't happen for men. They're just expected to already know what they're doing with everything. The same is not true for the gay industry. I don't think that there's quite as much, like, structure as there used to be in straight porn, where, like, first you do this thing, and then you do this thing, and then you do that thing, and you make more money as you do all of those things. I don't think it's that straightforward in the gay industry, for a variety of reasons. But men in gay porn can make a lot of money, because the same way that the straight industry requires a constant turnover of new female talent, the gay male porn industry requires a constant turnover of new male talent. So there's a lot more content available to be filmed for them. There's a lot more money involved. And there's just a lot more, you know, talent coming in and out of the industry. So we'll get more into sort of gay versus straight industry politics in a few chapters. I have a whole chapter on all of that stuff. It's a weird situation. What else? What else do we talk about? The time that I was famous for a minute. So I will continue to tell the story of when Hollywood wanted me to be a big deal over the next few chapters. But for those who may not be here for all of those chapters, I'll give you the quick version. So when I was flown out to LA by this production company, it was wild. Like, I actually had a bunch of people who had been in and around, you know, writers being courted by Hollywood production companies before tell me that they had never seen someone be courted so hard. Like, that people were clearly very, very interested in what I was doing, and like, they were like, we're sure that your pilot's gonna get made. And it's a really long process, right? Like, so first you get courted, you decide that you're going to work with the production company, then you need an agent to actually, like, go through your contract with the production company. Oh, hello, Kale. Hi, thank you for stopping by. I am talking about the time that I was in Hollywood it girl for like 2 seconds, when I was in my late 20s. Oh my god, that was like 2010? That was 9 years ago. Wait, 2010? Yeah, it was 9 years ago, as of this month, that I was in LA having meetings with production companies and agents and stuff. And it was so cool. I mean, I was like, oh my god, I am gonna be rich and famous, like, or at least famous, like, and people really, like, they were really giving me the Carrie Bradshaw treatment. They were like, this is gonna be just like Sex and the City, except it's about porn. And I was like, that's not what my life is like, but we can try. Like, we'll see. So I ended up, after all of that shook down and I got back to New York, I ended up with signing with a really big agency because they had both TV agents and literary agents available to work with me. So I actually had a team of 3 agents that I started working with. The production company's major caveat with turning my column into a TV show was that they wanted it to be very woman-centric. They wanted a female writing team and like as many people involved in making the pilot as possible to be female. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. But the difficulty was finding female writers in Hollywood is sadly not easy, and back then particularly was not easy. There weren't a whole lot of them around. And B, especially back then, maybe less so now, getting people to attach their names to a project that dealt heavily with pornography was also difficult. There just wasn't the same conversation about pornography as like a real actual thing going on then. So, you know, we negotiated the contract. It took a while. We got it nailed down, and then they started looking for co-writers to help me write the script because they were like, you're not a script writer, and I was like, no, I'm not, and nobody's gonna put a bunch of money behind my script because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So they wanted to find co-writers to help me with the script, but they wanted them to be women. And being a woman writer in Hollywood is hard enough, let alone being a woman writer in Hollywood who's writing about pornography with an unproven, untested other writer, me. So they kept looking for a long time. They kept looking for co-writers for me to get the script underway for like 2 or 3 years, and it just didn't work. So eventually, like, I got the money for the deal, the option deal, and I sold like the rights for it to the production company for like the span of 2 years, and then after that they were like, well, we're gonna keep looking, but this is probably just not happening. So, you know, it just fizzled and died, and it was really disappointing because, you know, everyone that I talked to when it was happening was like, yeah, you know, people option things for TV pilots all the time. Most of those pilots never get made, and even the ones that get made, most of them don't get picked up. So like, don't make any rash decisions based on this. But they also all said, I've never seen someone get courted this hard, this quickly by a production company. Like, they really want this to happen. You have a really good shot. So it was super disappointing that it didn't actually turn into something. Because, I mean, it would be really cool if I was, like, a famous TV writer right now, obviously. But by the same token, like, although I was 27 when this happened, I was also, like, I was a kid. I would have not handled it well. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I guess, like, nobody does, but I think that I probably would have been taken advantage of quite a lot. I probably wouldn't have gotten good, you know, good deals, good money out of it, and I probably would have allowed people to make a show about my life that I really didn't stand behind. That would have sucked. So, I mean, I'd still be happy if it had happened because I would probably be in a slightly better, like, situation, at least financially, if nothing else, but I don't super regret it. It was still a really wild experience to be on the receiving end of all of this, like, adulation from this entertainment industry. You know, all these people being like, wow, we love your work, you're so great, you're so cool, you're so pretty, you're so smart. Like, it was super validating and super intense, and it really, really helped me to understand, at least in a small way, what, you know, people who get into the porn industry go through. Like, that whole thing where, like, you know, your trajectory, you get into the industry and you're like, woo, I'm the king of the world, and then, you know, I mean, I had some TV agents tell me I was pretty, and I was like, wow, I really am. And if the money that I was about to make was based on how pretty I could stay while having sex on camera, like, I just can't imagine the ego boost that must be, but then also, like, how precarious that ego boost would be when it's so tied to something external like that. You know, I think most of us have some idea of like how validating it can be to be told that you're good looking. Or, you know, just validation coming from outside sources is like so fantastic, but it can be very short-lived, and that can be crushing when it goes away. So gave me a lot of insight, you know, that I think I could have intellectualized for myself if I hadn't had that experience, but I would never have like really gotten it. Jana says, that's extremely disappointing. I feel like it would be an important piece to have out there, even now, if they'd look again. Yeah, Jana, I'm not gonna lie. When this book came out, I was like secretly hoping that maybe those same people would like see it and be like, hey, now's the time. Let's do a retrospective piece about porn in 2009. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm your person. But actually my main contact at that production company is no longer in production. She left that world to become a social worker. And I don't even know anyone at that company anymore, and I don't even know how to reach her. So, yeah. I do still have contact with my entertainment lawyer, but lawyers aren't the ones that, you know, pitch ideas to production companies. And it's so far outside of my, like, understanding of the world now to even think about trying to, like, pitch a show somewhere. I don't know. For a little while there, it seemed like a thing that might really happen. And maybe it will in the future, but I don't think that I'll be focusing on trying to get a show about me made. I have some novels and graphic novels and comics and stuff that I'm working on that I would love to see turned into some form of, you know, visual entertainment. So I'll focus on those in the future if you know, screenwriting is going to be a thing for me. Kale says, PSA, everybody here is super good looking. Keep that in mind as you kick butt and complete goals today. That's true. We have an extremely good looking group of people here. Thank you, Kale. But don't let us validate you. You should, you know that you're awesome, and feel free to validate yourselves also, and be confident on your own. Don't turn to us for your validation. Entirely, at least. And stuff. Okay, so I guess that's kind of everything. I'm trying to think if there's any other takeaways that I wanted to talk about from that chapter, but I don't think there are. If anybody has questions about anything that I just read, or, you know, sort of more generally like the adult entertainment industry or my very limited knowledge of Hollywood, you know, go for it. In the meantime, I will let you know that in 2 weeks' time, so that's going to be, what, the 17th? Oh, the 17th of March, that's St. Patrick's Day. I probably am not going to do anything for St. Patrick's Day. And if I do, well, we'll see. I've done live streams hungover before. Why not do it again? On that day, on St. Patrick's Day, I will be reading Chapter 13, Editor-in-Chief, and that is about how I became the Editor-in-Chief of a magazine. What else is in here? Oh, and I finally started figuring out that queer and feminist porn was a thing. That was a huge moment in my writing career as I sought to understand queer and feminist porn, which changed my life. I'm not even gonna lie. JL says, make sure to get your parking validated on the way out, though. Yes, validation of the parking form is important so that you don't, like, have to pay huge fees. So this is interesting. I just realized that there's, like, after the chapter that I just read, there's a photo of me and Asa Akira. It's kind of randomly placed. Like, I don't know why they put it where they did, but I really like this picture. This was at, this was, I don't know when, maybe 2011, 2012. We were in the VIP booth at a strip club, where we went a lot. They did a lot of feature dancing gigs for adult performers. And I think that was like the owner's birthday party, and they had flown Asa Akira in from LA specifically to just be at his party. It wasn't even like, she wasn't even dancing. She was just there. And she invited me and some of my friends out. And so we got to hang out in the VIP booth with Asa Akira at the strip club for the night. It was a really fun party. JL says, there's a photo of you and Asa Akira. Of course, it has to be in the book. Doesn't matter where. Yeah, maybe. It's weird though, like, I don't really understand why they put most of the photos where they did. Like, some of them kind of go along with the content of the chapter, and then there's some that are just like, oh, here's a photo. And then there's like some chapters that don't actually have a photo at the beginning, and I'm like, why don't you spread these out differently? I don't know. Not my job to format the book. That's somebody else's job. So, all right. Other announcements. What's most relevant here? So there's 2 deadlines that just passed that I'm not going to mention because they're already passed. It won't do any good. I am finishing up my first writing coaching workshop where we covered book organization and sort of preparatory work for writing a book. Next week is going to be the last meeting of that workshop. And then I'm going to take some time to take the things that I learned from what I'm calling the pilot workshop and apply them to getting ready for another workshop that is going to start, I believe, in mid-April. And this one is going to be for keepsies. So I am going to be working with a small selected group of individuals who are, getting ready to start work on their books. It's going to be an 8-week-long workshop. We're going to have 1 2-hour call every week. There will also be a private group chat, which will, depending on how things go, either be on a private Facebook group or a private Discord group. And we're going to be focusing on things like outlining, character development, character arcs, world building, that kind of like organizational work that's going to get you from having an idea in your head into having your ideas ready to start working with when you actually start writing that book. So I'm putting together all of the materials for that between now and mid-April, and I'm going to keep mentioning it between now and mid-April because I am interested in finding out who's interested in signing up for the workshop. There will be more information available as time goes on, so right now I don't have everything figured out, but I will soon, and I will keep letting you know, so please be aware that that's happening. I'm also going to be taking on a new crop of one-on-one coaching clients for book writing of all kinds, fiction, nonfiction, prose, graphic novel, whatever the case may be. I have lots of experience with lots of kinds of books, and I am looking to be an accountability partner, a mentor, and a coach for people who are involved in the process of writing their books. So that'll be starting up again in April as well. I'm taking on new clients for the next few months. Again, I don't have everything all figured out, but I'm going to come up with some like fee schedules and like actual schedules of, when what is happening, and I'll be releasing those soon. So I just want to give everybody out there a heads up that that's happening. As always, I am available on the internets for questions. DMs about stuff are sort of welcome. Please, if you're going to DM me, keep it professional and interesting. If you are a creeper, I will ignore you. If you're not a creeper and you have something interesting to say or ask, I'm all ears. You can find copies of my book on my website, lynseyg.com. I can sign them and send them out to you, or you can purchase them in print or digital from most major book retailers. That is a thing that exists, and I hope that you will consider purchasing one because I think it's a pretty good book, if I do say so myself. I mean, Hollywood thinks I'm a good writer, so clearly I must be doing something right. What else? Oneshi Press, my publishing company, is working very hard on our next anthology. Our submission deadline for the next anthology just passed, so we are putting together our final roster for who's going to be in the anthology that's coming out in January. In July is when it's coming out. In January, the past January, is when our most recent anthology came out, and it is beautiful, and I think that you should probably check it out. You can learn more at oneshipress.com. It's oneshipress.com. We are also starting to talk about our next Kickstarter for our next big project. I am not going to give anything away yet. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open because we're really excited about it and it's going to be huge. So, get all psyched about that. Jenna says, this sounds amazing and extremely useful. I hope that you're talking about the writing coaching stuff. Yeah, I have been working really hard the past 2 months putting together this writing workshop with a pilot group of people who I know who are giving me feedback on my own workshoppingness as we go. And then I'm taking the feedback from all of this and, you know, molding sort of the skeleton that I put together into a full-fledged, fully fleshed out writing workshop that I am going to hopefully be doing every few months. And I'm really excited. I feel like the book writing one is going really well. And then what I'd like to do is start to break it down and eventually offer like graphic novel writing, nonfiction book writing, separate workshops. But, you know, they take a lot of time and a lot of effort to put together, like, this sort of curriculum for a workshop. So I'm taking it slowly, because I don't have enough time to devote to make them all happen at once. So I'm just doing it slowly, you know, one thing at a time. But yeah, the next workshop is going to start in mid-April. More information will be available on my website, lynseyg.com, and also through my social media as it gets closer to mid-April. And the one-on-one coaching also is a thing that I am working on. I have a few clients that I've been developing my process with, and I'm hoping that in April I'll also be able to take on very few select clients to work one-on-one with on their book writing / organization process. That's much more open-ended than the workshop, and I tailor the one-on-one coaching very much more to the specific needs of the individual that I'm working with. So I don't have as much of a spiel about it because it really depends on who you are and what you're doing as to how we work together. But more on that to come. And I think that's about it. I hope that I will see as many of you as possible back in 2 weeks when I will hopefully be not too terribly hungover on St. Patrick's Day. I don't really usually do much for St. Patrick's Day. I think it's kind of a silly holiday. But hey, you know, in mid-March, it's starting to warm up. Lots of the time you just need an excuse to like get out and get your drink on, or, you know, just like celebrate generally. So I get it. It's cool. I have a few ideological issues with the idea. As a person of Irish descent, I think it's kind of silly. So anyway, I don't want to go on a rant. But it will be on the 17th on St. Patrick's Day when I do my next reading, and we'll read chapter 13, Editor-in-Chief. And it'll be great. I'm going to put up this video with some notes that'll have links to some articles about the topics that I discussed, and to the like social media and some interviews that I've done with the people who I quoted throughout the chapter. This book has tons of quotes from amazing people who have given me interviews over the course of, you know, like 11 years. And I like to give them as much credit as I can for being awesome. So if you check this out later, it'll be up on Facebook and on YouTube, and I will put the links and notes in both of those. So that's it for now. Thank you everybody so much for hanging out. I really had a really nice time today, actually. Even though I started out nervous, I feel great now. So thank you for your support, and I think that's it. Okay, bye everybody.